Rowan Hale wiped the black smudge from his palm, the rough towel only smearing it deeper into calloused skin. Evening light slanted through the cracked windows of Hale's auto, setting the dusty shop aglow with gold. Half-finished engines and scattered tools caught the fading sun like relics of a forgotten time. Rowan checked the old clock nailed above the door. 6:30. Another day spent fixing lives that refused to move forward. He tossed the towel aside, locking up without ceremony. Millbridge's narrow streets stretched before him, each weathered, brick and peeling lamppost, as familiar as breath. Mrs. Callahan waved from her porch swing, her cat curled lazily beside her feet. Rowan offered a nod, no words, his boots thudding against the cracked pavement in a rhythm he barely noticed anymore. Above Gus's hardware, the old stairwell groaned under his weight. Inside his tiny apartment, the stale scent of machine oil hung stubbornly, battling the leftover aroma of last night's cold Chinese takeout. Rowan kicked off his boots, glancing at the crooked calendar taped to the fridge. July 15th. Meaningless. He opened the fridge out of habit, found nothing worth eating, then noticed the flyer pinned by a cracked magnet. Millbridge Annual Night Market, tonight only. A small shrug lifted his shoulders. Not like he had plans. Maybe he'd find a broken radio, some forgotten engine part to tinker with, something, anything, to make the hours feel less empty. The town square pulsed with life when he arrived. Strings of yellow bulbs crisscrossed above vendor stalls where old treasures changed hands beneath the summer stars. Children darted between tables stacked with battered novels and glass figurines. Laughter curled through the air, a sound Rowan barely remembered belonging to. He wandered without purpose, brushing his fingertips across worn books, cracked vinyl records, rusted tools whispering of forgotten lives. Nothing called to him. Nothing ever did anymore. Until he saw it. Nestled, between a chipped mirror and a rusted weather vane lay an orb, faintly glowing, breathing almost, shifting colors across its surface in impossible patterns. Rowan blinked, unsure if his eyes played tricks on him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" a voice rasped. He turned to find a vendor draped in moth-eaten fabric, his face shadowed beneath a wide-brimmed hat. The man's hand, veined and trembling, hovered protectively near the orb. His smile, when it came, held a strange sadness. "What's it for?" Rowan asked, unable to tear his gaze away. The vendor chuckled. "The sound like dry leaves scraping stone. Not for fixing things. Not in the way you know." Rowan hesitated. Practicality warred against something deeper, older, stirring inside his chest. Curiosity, perhaps, or hunger for a change he could neither name nor deny. "How much?" The vendor's smile deepened. 20, Rowan fished a crumpled bill from his jeans. As the vendor's hand closed over the money, the orb flared brighter. A low hum, almost a purr, vibrated against Rowan's palm when he picked it up. Warmth seeped into his skin, sinking through muscle and bone, until something deep inside him answered. When he looked up, the vendor was gone, not walking away. Simply gone, leaving an empty space between two stalls where he'd stood only moments before. Heart hammering, Rowan clutched the orb closer and shoved it into his jacket pocket. The walk home blurred into a series of confused impressions. Children's. Laughter, the creak of signposts, the sudden hush of the wind as if the town itself held its breath. Inside his apartment, he locked the door, bolted it for good measure, then set the orb carefully on the kitchen counter. Under the flickering fluorescent light, the surface shifted again, clouds rolling across a tiny sky, oceans birthing stars within a glass world. He reached out. His fingers barely brushed one of the swirling constellations before the orb pulsed. Violently, light blooming in a silent explosion. Rowan staggered back, shielding his eyes. The air vibrated. The apartment, the world, seemed to tilt. When the brilliance faded, Rowan lowered his arm and froze. Hovering above the cracked linoleum floor was a figure. Female, impossibly ethereal. Her silver hair cascading around a face both ancient and heartbreakingly beautiful. Her skin shimmered with galaxies, and when her eyes opened, Rowan found himself staring into the infinite. The woman spoke, and though the words twisted strangely against his ears, the meaning rang clear inside his mind. You have called me. You have awakened what sleeps between worlds. Rowan took a step back, breath catching in his throat. What are you? The woman tilted her head, a slow, graceful movement. I am Nira. And in that moment, Rowan Hale's life unraveled, the first thread pulled loose by a touch he could never have foreseen. The air between them crackled with energy, a silent storm, trapped inside 4 battered walls. Rowan stood frozen, heart pounding so hard it blurred the edges of his vision. Nira drifted closer, her bare feet never quite touching the floor, every movement graceful, deliberate, otherworldly. He opened his mouth to speak, but found language slipping away like smoke. How could words exist for something so impossible? Nira's gaze held his, unwavering. Patterns of distant nebulae danced across her irises. When she spoke again, the vibrations thrummed against his bones, bypassing the need for sound. You have triggered the bond. It cannot be undone. Rowan shook his head, stepping back until the counter pressed cold against his spine. His mouth finally obeyed. I don't understand. What bond? I just touched the damn thing. A hint of sadness crossed her luminous features. Intent weaves reality. By claiming the relic, you accepted responsibility. Our destinies are now entwined. Rowan scrubbed a hand over his face, trying to shake the unreality sinking deeper with every breath. Okay, sure. Magic Space Lady appears in my kitchen, talking about fate like it's ordering coffee. Makes perfect sense. Nira tilted her head, the faintest smile playing at her lips. Not mocking, more like fondness, amusement. Rowan couldn't tell, and that uncertainty unsettled him more than anything. You possess humor, she noted, almost to herself. A useful trait. This path will not be easy. Start at the beginning, he muttered. Explain like I'm an idiot. Nira floated down, settling gracefully into the chair across from him. For the first time, she seemed almost tangible, as if her existence no longer belonged only to stars and forgotten myths. There are infinite realities, she began, her voice low and steady. Each choice creates a branch, each possibility a river. My kind are the wardens, guardians of balance among these countless streams. Rowan laced his fingers together, leaning forward despite himself. I was sealed within the relic you now hold, she continued. After betraying the laws of my order, I dared to defy the structure's binding existence, believing freedom more sacred than control. Rowan frowned. And touching the orb woke you up? Nira nodded. More than that. You accepted a bargain older than your species. 3 choices now lie before you, 3 paths woven into your fate. Rowan snorted. 3 wishes. Like a genie. Nira's expression sobered. Not wishes, choices, different threads of possibility. Each will change your life, this world, perhaps entire universes. He rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the weight of invisible chains tightening around his soul. What if I say no? I don't want cosmic choices. I just want my old, boring life. Nira's eyes softened, starlight dimming. Refusal will not unmake the bond. Once invoked, the current drags all things forward. Denial only ensures greater suffering. Rowan sat back heavily, the chair groaning under his weight. For a long moment, neither spoke. Somewhere outside, a dog barked into the stillness. Wind rattled the windows. "What happens to you?" he asked finally. "If I choose wrong." Naira looked down at her hands, luminous threads of energy swirling just beneath translucent skin. "I remain bound, trapped between realities, powerless to act, forced to watch existence unravel." Something twisted painfully inside Rowan's chest. He didn't know this being, didn't even know if she could be trusted. Yet the thought of her imprisoned again, caged behind cosmic walls, made bile rise in his throat. "You don't deserve that," he said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. Naira looked up sharply, a flicker of hope igniting in her cosmic gaze. "Few mortals would care," Rowan gave a rough laugh. "Yeah, well, maybe I'm an idiot with greasy hands and bad luck, but I fix broken things. That's what I do." A smile, real, luminous, breathtaking, broke across her face, scattering constellations like sparks. For the first time, Naira looked less like a celestial force and more like someone who might bleed, laugh, cry. "You have heart," she whispered, almost in awe. "Perhaps more powerful than you know." Before Rowan could respond, a deep rumble shook the building, rattling loose a cascade of dust from the ceiling. The lights snapped off. Through the darkness, crimson flares strobed against the window panes. Naira rose, all traces of fragility burning away into fierce radiance. "They found us," she said, voice sharpening into something cold and resolute. Rowan stood, adrenaline flooding every nerve ending. "Who?" "Those who would reclaim me," Naira answered, her silhouette outlined by the pulsing red light. "And destroy you." Rowan didn't hesitate. He grabbed the glowing orb from the counter, tucking it against his chest. "Then let's run," he said, voice steady. Naira's hand found his. Energy leapt between them, binding them tighter than chains. Night swallowed them as they sprinted down the alley, Rowan's breath burning in his lungs. Naira floated just ahead, her feet barely skimming the cracked asphalt, a living ember against the darkness. Sirens wailed in the distance, slicing through, the humid summer air like hunting horns. He risked a glance over his shoulder. Black SUVs skidded around the corner, tires screeching, headlights painting monstrous shadows across the brick walls. Men in armored suits spilled out, weapons gleaming under the streetlights. No insignias, no warning. Whoever they were, they hadn't come to talk. Naira yanked Rowan into a narrow gap between two buildings, her hand searing against his wrist. Concrete scraped his jacket, but he forced himself to keep moving. Questions roared inside his mind. Who were these men? How had they found them so fast? But instinct shouted louder. "Survive now, ask later." They burst into an abandoned warehouse, the door hanging loose on rusted hinges. Inside, darkness pooled thick and heavy. Naira pressed her palm against the wall, whispering something too, alien for Rowan to understand. Faint silver glyphs flared into existence, creating a shimmering barrier across the entrance just as the first agents reached the threshold. Gunfire shattered the night. Bullets ricocheted harmlessly off the glowing shield, sparks showering the ground. Rowan stumbled back, heart hammering against his ribs. Naira's face remained calm, almost serene, though sweat gleamed along her temples. "This protection will not last," she said, voice low. "Their weapons are infused with resonance disruptors." Rowan wiped his forehead with a trembling hand. "English." "Please, they can break through," she clarified, urgency bleeding into her tone. Rowan gritted his teeth. "Then we need another exit." Naira closed her eyes, strands of hair lifting in a silent wind that Rowan couldn't feel. The ground beneath them trembled. A hatch materialized near the back of the warehouse, old metal hissing as it slid open. Rowan didn't wait. He grabbed Naira's hand again and dove into the blackness below, landing hard on a gravel-strewn tunnel. The air smelled of mold and rust. He coughed, then pushed forward, guiding Naira by touch more than sight. Behind them, the glyphs cracked, the sound sharp as glass snapping underfoot. They ran blindly, the passage twisting like a serpent beneath the town. Footsteps echoed above, a reminder that time bled away with every heartbeat. After what felt like miles, faint light seeped ahead. They emerged into a junkyard, the skeletal remains of forgotten machines looming around them like sentinels. Moonlight, caught on broken mirrors and dented hoods, scattering shards of silver across the landscape. Rowan bent double, gasping for air. Naira scanned the horizon, her posture taut, alert. "Are they still coming?" he asked between gulps. She nodded. "They track my signature." Rowan straightened, mind racing. "Then we need to hide it, or mask it." Naira hesitated, as if weighing possibilities against risks. Finally, she reached into the air itself, drawing out thin threads of shimmering energy. She wove them into a cloak around her form, dimming her glow until she looked almost human, almost breakable. Rowan watched, awe tightening his chest. Even weakened, even hunted, she moved with a grace the stars would envy. "You'll still be traceable," he said, voice hoarse. "Just less obvious." "It buys time," she agreed. A roar split the night as a drone swooped overhead, its searchlights, carving circles through the wreckage. Rowan grabbed Naira, pulling her into the hollowed-out shell of an ancient pickup truck. They pressed close, bodies molded together by necessity. The drone passed without pausing, its sensors fooled by Naira's hastily spun camouflage. Rowan exhaled slowly, aware of every place their bodies touched, every point where her warmth seeped into him. "Why are they after you?" he whispered, breath brushing her ear. Naira's fingers curled into his jacket, as if anchoring herself against invisible tides. "Because I broke their rules. Because I chose freedom over obedience." Sounds like a good reason to me. Naira tilted, her head, studying him with eyes full of galaxies and grief. "Most would see me as dangerous. Maybe I'm not most people." For a heartbeat, silence wrapped them together, a fragile world built from stolen moments. Then, tires screeched nearby, headlights slicing through the junkyard's twisted skeletons. Naira's hand found his again, strong and sure. "Run?" he asked, voice dry. A rare smile touched her lips. "Always." They tore across the wasteland of metal and rust, twin fugitives racing against a destiny neither fully understood, bound by threads stronger than fate itself. Cold night air lashed against Rowan's face as they sprinted across the endless maze of twisted metal. Every breath felt stolen, every heartbeat an echo of the danger snapping at their heels. Naira's fingers gripped his with unrelenting strength, guiding him through wreckage and ruin as if she already knew the way. A sudden explosion rocked the ground behind them, showering sparks into the sky. Rowan didn't glance back. Instinct screamed that looking meant dying. They vaulted over a collapsed fence, boots skidding across gravel as momentum carried them toward a looming drainage tunnel. Naira didn't hesitate. She plunged inside first, her form briefly illuminated by the flashing emergency lights sweeping overhead. Rowan followed, heart pounding out a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The tunnel swallowed them whole. Darkness clung to the curved walls, thick and suffocating. The only sound was their labored breathing and the distant mechanical whir of pursuit. Rowan stumbled, palms scraping against damp stone. Naira caught him, her touch stabilizing, grounding. They pressed deeper into the black, each step a prayer to escape. When they finally emerged, the world outside had changed. Above them stretched a sky stitched with unfamiliar stars, twin moons casting fractured silver across a landscape that defied understanding. Trees with translucent leaves swayed in a wind that whispered in languages Rowan couldn't recognize. The air tasted of ozone and wildness, sharp against his tongue. Rowan stopped, chest heaving. "Where the hell are we?" Naira's expression grew solemn. We crossed a rift. A rift. A tier between realities, created by the stress of my awakening. It pulled us through. Rowan stared at the alien landscape, disbelief wrestling with awe. So, not Kansas anymore. Naira smiled faintly. Not even your universe. Above them, strange creatures circled the moons, their wings slicing through the thin atmosphere with eerie grace. The sight stole Rowan's breath. Beauty and danger, bound. Together like threads in the same cloth. A low rumble shuddered through the ground. Rowan glanced at Naira, whose shoulders tensed visibly. They're following, she said, voice tight. Even across dimensions. Rowan rubbed his face, smearing dirt and sweat. We can't just keep running forever. Naira's hands glowed faintly, as she summoned a sphere of swirling starlight between her palms. Within it, scenes flickered, realities branching, futures coiling like serpents around unseen cores. There is a trial, she said quietly. A way to break the bond's danger. But it is not simple. Rowan lowered his hands, frowning. Define, not simple. You must prove the bond unbreakable, across multiple worlds, under endless pressures. Rowan swallowed hard, throat dry. And if I fail? Naira didn't answer. She didn't have to. Rowan exhaled slowly. His gaze roamed. The alien forest, the twin moons overhead, the impossible creatures dancing between them. Then he looked at her, at the gravity of sorrow behind her cosmic eyes, at the defiance written into every breath she took. I'm in, he said. The sphere in her hands brightened, arcs of silver lightning leaping from its surface. Reality twisted. The ground beneath their feet gave way. Rowan fell through a cyclone of color and sound, tumbling through dimensions faster than thought, faster than fear. For one terrifying moment, he glimpsed infinite versions of himself, victor, coward, martyr, villain, before the whirlwind spat him into a world not his own. He landed hard on cracked asphalt beneath a sky of perpetual twilight. Towering skyscrapers loomed on either side, neon signs flickering in languages he couldn't comprehend. Rain slicked the ground, reflecting distorted images of a city that never slept. He staggered upright, every muscle screaming. His clothes had changed, replaced by a battered leather jacket, reinforced boots, and a strange device strapped to his forearm, humming with dormant power. Naira stood nearby, similarly altered. Her hair, once a river of light, now flowed in dark braids streaked with copper. Her eyes, however, remained the same, unchanged, unyielding. A voice crackled from a hidden speaker embedded in his jacket. Detectives Hale and Nova, report to Sector 7, target sighted. Rowan blinked, disoriented. Detectives? Target? Naira stepped close, her hand brushing his. The contact sent a surge of clarity through the confusion. This is the first trial, she said, words barely audible over the city's mechanical heartbeat. Find me, protect me, choose me, no matter who or what I am. Rowan nodded, determination settling into his bones like iron. He wouldn't fail. Not here, not anywhere. Not while she still looked at him as if he was the only constant in a universe designed to tear them apart. Sirens wailed in the distance. Engines roared. The hunt had begun again, but this time, Rowan wasn't just running. He was fighting, for her, for them, for the fragile, impossible bond that not even the gods of 1,000 worlds could shatter. The world shifted again, blurring with the aftershocks of the last trial. Rowan's body ached with the strain of the journey, his mind fogged from the impossible landscapes they'd crossed. He stumbled forward, his legs shaking with the weight of the choice pressing down on him like an invisible weight. Naira, silent beside him, had not yet spoken since the trial ended. The intensity in her gaze had not wavered, but the haunting sadness clinging to her eyes deepened with each passing moment. This was no longer about proving their bond, or proving his worth. This was about survival, her survival, and his own. The sea, landscape around them, a forest of towering, jagged rocks and an eerie purple sky, had shifted without warning. Rowan had grown used to the instability of this new existence, but this world felt different. The tension in the air was thick, as though the very earth itself was waiting for something to happen. "We don't have much time," Nyra said, her voice like a whisper that vibrated through the air, making Rowan shiver despite the heat of their surroundings. Rowan's jaw clenched. "How much time?" "Before they come," she replied. "Before the final trial begins, the cosmic enforcers will be here soon." Rowan took a step closer, searching her face for something, anything that might reveal the weight of what was happening. Her face was unreadable, but the faintest tremor in her lips betrayed the calm facade she was trying so hard to maintain. "Then we'll be ready," he said. But even as the words left his mouth, he wasn't sure if he believed them. They had crossed through so many trials, each one more taxing than the last. Each new world, each new challenge, had stretched their bond to its limits. Rowan had fought beside her, protected her, trusted her. But what would it take to truly prove their love? Would surviving the trials be enough? Would he even survive the choice he was about to make? The ground rumbled beneath their feet, a deep, primal sound that shook the air around them. Rowan instinctively reached for Nyra's hand, his heart pounding in his chest. "They're here," Nyra said softly. Rowan's eyes snapped to the horizon. Shadows began to shift against the dying light of the purple sky, moving as if alive. Figures, imposing and massive, emerged from the earth itself, like ancient gods awakened from slumber. The enforcers. Rowan could feel the weight of their power. From a distance, the sheer force of their presence. He swallowed hard, his chest tightening as they neared. They were impossible to ignore. Towering figures of pure energy, their forms constantly shifting, never staying still, as though they existed in a place between places. Nyra squeezed his hand once, a silent gesture that said more than words ever could. "I know what you are thinking," she murmured. "But there is no easy choice here." Rowan turned to her, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" She met his gaze, her eyes dark with the weight of everything that had come before. "The final trial is not one of survival, it is one of sacrifice." Rowan's stomach lurched. Sacrifice? What kind of sacrifice? Nyra hesitated, as if weighing how much of the truth she could share without breaking him. To ensure the bond is unbreakable, you must give up something precious, a part of yourself. A piece of your soul. Rowan shook his head. "That's impossible. I can't." "You can," she said quietly. "But only if you truly understand the cost of what we've built. The love we share is more than just the threads that tie us together. It is a bond that transcends time, space, and even death. But it cannot survive unless it is tempered with something real, something that matters. You will be tested. Your love for me, for this world, for yourself." Rowan's chest tightened. He had already sacrificed so much of his own humanity to protect her, to keep her safe. He had given everything, and now this final trial was asking for something that felt even more impossible than anything before. He looked up at the approaching enforcers, their forms looming larger with each passing second. "Choose," Nyra said softly. "Choose me, and we will face the consequences together. Choose us, and I will stand by you, no matter what the future holds." Rowan's mind raced, flashes of every trial, every moment they'd shared together, running through his mind. Her laughter, her tears, the way she had looked at him when she trusted him with her life. He could feel his heart beating faster, the weight of the impossible choice bearing down on him. In that moment, he knew. He had already chosen. Rowan stepped forward, his decision settling deep within him like a burning certainty. "I choose you, Naira. I choose us." Naira's expression softened, a flicker of relief, of gratitude passing through her eyes. But there was something else. Something raw and beautiful. Her gaze locked onto his, and for the first time, Rowan saw a glimmer of something deeper than love in her eyes. The enforcers stopped, their massive forms suspended in the air as they observed the two of them, waiting, judging. But Rowan didn't look at them anymore. His focus was entirely on Naira, on the woman he had come to love more than anything in this fractured, twisted universe. "I'm ready," he said, his voice steady. "We'll face this together, whatever comes." Naira nodded once, her fingers tightening around his, and then, with a surge of energy that shook the very ground beneath them, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face the final trial that would either forge their bond for eternity or tear them apart forever. Tremor rippled through reality as Rowan and Naira stepped through the shimmering gateway. Light fractured around them, scattering iridescent sparks that danced across a boundless void. They hovered, bodies entwined, while colossal figures materialized, the cosmic enforcers, each radiating ancient authority. Eyes of shifting starlight bore into their souls, assessing every heartbeat, every whispered vow. Rowan tightened his grip on Naira's hand, drawing strength from her steady warmth. She returned his squeeze, determination blazing in her galaxy-bright gaze. Silence stretched. Before the leader's voice, a thunderous echo that resonated through uncharted dimensions. "Your choices have led you here," it intoned. "Now prove that sacrifice outweighs desire." At once, winds of possibility whirled around them, carrying visions of forsaken worlds, of futures unmade. Rowan blinked, confronting echoes of every life he might lead without Naira by his side. A lonely existence, unfulfilled passions, endless regret. His chest constricted at the thought, heart pounding like a drum in an empty hall. Naira's lips curved into a reassuring smile. "Remember why we endure," she whispered. "Our bond transcends all adversity." Her words kindled courage within him, dispersing creeping doubt. The leader nodded once, then another enforcer stepped forward, extending a hand shimmering like molten silver. "You have chosen love over convenience, unity over abandonment. Such conviction is rare among mortals and immortals alike." The extended arm crackled, touching Rowan's chest. His bones hummed with newfound resilience, his spirit shone with abiding hope. Naira approached, her eyes glistening with relief and profound affection. The enforcer turned to her, touching her shoulder with that same ethereal hand. Threads of cosmic law, once binding and unyielding, dissolved like mist in sunlight. In their place, a new covenant formed, one born from genuine choice rather than compulsion. Naira inhaled, skin glowing, softly as her powers settled into a gentle cadence, no longer chained by ancient compacts. Freedom tasted like stardust on her tongue. Rowan exchanged a glance with Naira, exhilaration and relief mingling in their smiles. He reached for her, and together they dove into the vortex, leaving echoing cheers of cosmic beings behind. Instantly, Millbridge's familiar skyline reformed around them. Tattered rooftops illuminated by street lamps, the quiet hum of distant traffic, the scent of summer jasmine drifting on a soft breeze. They landed on the rooftop of Rowan's apartment building, breathless and unsteady. Naira shook her head, marveling at the simplicity of Earth's geometry. "Home feels different now," she murmured. Rowan nodded, brushing a strand of her dark hair from her face, his gaze tender. "Everything feels different," he agreed. Below, punctuated by twilight stars, the town breathed on, unaware of the cosmic revolution that had just concluded above its rooftops. Days later, a stately ceremony unfolded in Millbridge's restored square. Under banners of indigo and silver, representatives from distant planets gathered with human dignitaries. Rowan and Naira stood together, ambassadors bridging countless worlds. As Naira addressed the assembly, her voice carried gentle authority, weaving threads of empathy that resonated across alien and human hearts alike. Rowan watched, pride swelling within him like the dawn's first light. When the speeches concluded, Rowan and Naira slipped away to the quiet of the nearby hill. They sat beneath a blanket of familiar constellations, now seen through new eyes of shared wonder. Naira nestled against his shoulder, her fingers lacing through his. Rowan tilted his head, his smile soft as moonlight. "Do you ever miss the trials?" he asked. Naira exhaled a contented sigh. "Not when I wake beside you." He laughed, low and warm. "Then I suppose eternity will be enough." She pressed a gentle kiss to his cheek, her touch humming with starlight. Eternity and beyond. Hand in hand, they watched the night sky, once a distant tapestry, now a living horizon filled with promise. Their journey had begun in a mechanic's kitchen. It would continue across galaxies, but for now, they simply existed together, partners, in love and adventure, forever bound by the choice they made and the countless possibilities still awaiting discovery.